Hey guys, welcome to the video. Salt here. Today I'll be going over the new Warframe Yareli Prime. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an LR5 with over 6,000 hours in the game, and my goal is to provide builds and guides for people to have an easier time in Warframe. Okay, before we start, let's go over our first and top commenter board. Our first commenter of the last video was the same as the top commenter. It's Phoenix Mach 2. And we have a recent supporter board here of Nice Bear, Colonel Suro 6, and Alfoko. Thank you so much for your support. All right, I'm going to go over the abilities first, but I'll have everything timestamped so you could always skip ahead if you already know the abilities. Yareli's passive is that she gets plus 200% critical chance for secondary weapons when she's been moving for at least 1.5 seconds. Her 1 is Sea Snares. You fire 5 water globules that sit in place, then seek out enemies in range. 15 globules can be active at once, and globules will try to home in and seek different enemies than other water globules. Enemies affected by globules get suspended, take cold damage, and become more vulnerable to other forms of damage. And Sea Snares casts quicker when you're on Marilina, which is her 2. Yareli's 2 is Marilina. So this is her special hoverboard or hover creature. It will spawn with a health pool based on your ability strength and has 50 armor. Weirdly, armor Archon shards will give it more armor, but I personally don't think it's worth using 5 shards to barely pass 1000 armor rating on it. While on Marilina, 90% damage taken will be redirected to Marilina's health pool. Casting Marilina will give you 4 seconds of invulnerability, and also if Marilina dies, or if you manually cancel it, you'll get 1.5 seconds of invuln. And while on Marilina, you'll be resistant to knockdown and self-stagger. Yareli's 3 is Aqua Blades. 3 blades will spin around you in a small circle, doing stagger and slash damage to enemies hit. Additionally, Aqua Blades is free to cast while you're on Marilina. Yareli's 4 is Riptide. You'll create a water spout that sucks enemies in, ragdolling them, doing cold damage, and on expiration will explode, doing more cold damage to them depending on the amount of people that were inside that water spout. Well, the amount of enemies, I should say. Riptide can also be manually ended early to explode it by pressing the ability again while it's active. For subsumed abilities, there's a few things to consider. First, you need to dismount Marilina to cast your subsume, which can be very annoying. So we want a subsume that's either channeled or has a naturally high duration, so we don't need to do this often. I found the best subsumes to be as follows. Roar from Rhino, this is just a multiplicative damage increase, and will generally be your best option in most situations. Next, Nourish from Grendel gives you free viral, allowing you to go with stronger element combos on your weapon, as well as helping with energy regen. Now, Nourish combos best with a fast-firing weapon with at least average status chance or better, so just keep that in mind. And finally, Ophiman Eyes from Jade. I hope I'm saying that right there. This is a constant directional armor strip that eventually ticks down the enemy's armor enough to be a full armor strip. I found this to take about 3-ish seconds for it to eventually full strip enemies. Obviously, this is better against armored factions and doesn't really see any value on non-armored factions. This ability also requires range, and so we lose about 65% ability strength and 45% ability duration to accommodate it. Since our aura needs to change to corrosive projection, our Exilus slot needs to change to cunning drift, narrow-minded needs to change to continuity, and augur secrets needs to change to Archon stretch. For me personally, I'll be using Rhino's Roar since it is the best general option, but I do think Ophiman Eyes from Jade may eventually beat it out on near level cap content against Grineer enemies specifically. And we'll be putting our subsume over Yareli's 4 of Riptide. Unfortunately, crowd control doesn't work on overguarded enemies, and pretty quickly after only a few rotations in Steel Path, you'll be encountering huge amounts of overguarded enemies. So this ends up just being a slow, expensive ability that doesn't work on half of the enemies that you're encountering. All right, let's go over the general playstyle on Yareli real quick. You'll be on Marilina all the time. You'll keep 100% uptime on Aqua Blades. You'll keep 100% uptime on Roar or whatever subsume you decided to go with. Sea Snares is such a quick cast, and I make it even quicker with some casting speed shards, so I like to throw out Sea Snares at groups of enemies in between my shots. Remember, this also makes enemies vulnerable to damage, so make sure to cast Sea Snares on Eximuses or Thraxes also. Marilena will die and go down, but that's okay, you have invulnerability when this happens, so just quickly recast her and get right back up on it. And then sometimes you may also need to reset your Roar, so you can manually jump off of her, roar, then get back on. Again, still getting invuln for all of this. All right, so let's go over the mods finally. Prime Redirection for shield capacity. Primed Vigor for shield capacity and health. If you don't have Primed Vigor, use regular Vigor here or Augur Accord. Adaptation for damage reduction. Narrow-minded for duration. Not much of our build scales with range, so we can afford to lose some here. Now, this will make your initial Sea Snare cast seek range about 10 meters instead of 30 meters. So if you don't like that, then you can go Primed Continuity here instead for a slightly lower duration, but no range loss, and that's okay. Precision Intensify for ability strength. Blind Rage for ability strength. And in the next slot, this is kind of a flex slot here. You can play around with it. I suggest either Augur Secrets for a little bit more strength or Equilibrium for better energy economy. I'm going to be personally using a purple shard for the mini Equilibrium effect, so I like Augur Secrets here instead. Archon Flow for a larger energy pool. Regular Flow or Primed Flow is fine here too. The Archon version just tries to min-max on the very, very small amount of energy orbs that it might make. And in the Aura slot, Growing Power for ability strength. Power Drift for ability strength in the Exilus. And for Arcanes, Yareli is really open to anything here. You can really pick the Arcanes you personally like best. For me, I like Arcane Avenger, which is plus 45% final critical chance. And Molt Augmented for another plus 60% ability strength. All right, let's go over externals, starting with Archon Shards, but just know that these externals are all just optional and none are really needed. So I like 2 yellow shards for casting speed. This makes your Sea Snare cast even more instant and helps you to get off and back on Marilena quicker. I like 2 red shards for duration. This makes whatever subsume you went with, Roar, Nourish, or Optimize, last over 60 seconds. So again, making it more comfortable for Yareli so she doesn't have to keep getting off and on as often. And finally, in the last Archon shard slot, I like using 1 purple shard for that mini Equilibrium effect. And this is because I chose not to use the Equilibrium mod itself on my build. So I still get kind of a smaller effect on my Archon shard here. For the primary slot, it doesn't really matter. Yareli is a secondary user. She can only use secondaries on her board, so the primary slot is the least important slot. You can leave it empty. You can maybe choose a utility pick here if you really wanted to. It doesn't really matter. For the secondary slot though, there's a few things to consider on Yareli. One is that her passive gives 200% critical chance, which isn't a great combo with Arcane Enervate type weapons. And 2, while on her board, it's not very easy to ADS and get consistent headshots. So ADS builds aren't a great combo with her either. So for me personally, that means I'm looking for a weapon with good natural crit chance that can be hip fired and requires no aim. I made a little list of some weapons for you to consider, but it's okay if you want to use a different weapon than one on the list here. So Atomos Incarnon is a heavy crit weapon, and it's also an AoE weapon. The Spore Lacer Kit Gun is a heavy crit weapon. It's also an AoE weapon. And the Furious Incarnon is a heavy crit weapon. And it's not really an AoE weapon. It's more of like a beam cone-ish weapon, but it's still really, really good. So those 3 I feel like are the best options for her, but there might be some others I missed there. You can let me know in the comments. I myself kind of go back and forth between the Atomos and the Spore Lacer Kit Gun. They're both really good. I believe the Atomos is stronger than the Spore Lacer, but because it's an Incarnate, it has that like weird thing where you have to keep charging it up like in between your AoE shots. So if you find that annoying, the Spore Lacer kick gun is more consistent. For melees, your best option is the Furax Wraith for its free plus 45% fire rate to your secondaries with its special Amalgam mod. For focus schools, I like Xeneric, just for that free passive energy regen. And for pets, Yareli is again really open to any pet, but I'll be picking the Panzervault Bophyla for consistent viral priming. This is how you build out the new Warframe Yareli Prime. I hope you guys liked it, and if you did, consider leaving a like and subscribing for future content. And so I'll leave you with about 5 minutes of gameplay showcasing her. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. All right, bye. All right, we're gonna start the 5-minute gameplay portion up here. Show how Yareli works. Before you get on Marlena, you want to cast your Subsume. In my case, it's Roar. I'm gonna get on Marlena. Let me try to get a few more headshots so I can fully fill the Atomos here. Cast Aqua Blades when I have enough energy. If I see a big group of enemies or a particularly large enemy, I can cast Sea Snares on them to give them damage vulnerability. But you probably won't need that until later on in Steel Path. The big question with Yareli is, what secondary to use. And I go back and forth so much between the Kick Gun, the Spore Lacer, and the Incarnate Atomos. It's obvious that the Atomos Incarnate is stronger than the Spore Lacer. It's just that because it's an Incarnate, you have that like really annoying charge up time where I have to charge this thing up. Granted, it's still really powerful, right? I mean, you still see it like killing everything, but it's more powerful when it's in its little exploding mode. But it just takes a little bit of time sometimes to get into its exploding mode. Whereas the Spore Lacer is always in its exploding mode. Oh, Marley is down. You press 2, you get right back on it. You don't really have to worry about like trying to go crazy with Marlena Survival, because all you have to do is press 2 as soon as you go down. You go right back on it. You even get invulnerability for doing it, so why not? Look, Roar's down. I'm going to press 2, get off of it manually. Press Roar, press 2 again, boom, done. It's not that big of a deal. Sure to keep Aqua Blades up, unlike me, keep forgetting. If you see a particularly big group of enemies, or a large enemy like a Thrax or an Eximus, you can go ahead and Sea Snare them real quick. And it's super quick to do. I don't know if you even noticed that there, so. And you could actually do it back to back too. I think you could do like 2 casts almost instant. So let me see here. Yeah, that was like 2 casts right there. Now their seek range when they're on the ground is going to be 10 meters, but when you initially cast it, it can be up to 30. And that's why, maybe instead of narrow-minded, you would want continuity. That way you can keep it at 30, but that's up to you. I don't really care that it's 10. Little things that pop up out of the ground. Like they're meant for Yareli. Screw her up. Let's put Aqua Blades back on. Let's jump off manually. Put on Roar. Back on. You're not going to get a lot of your damage out of Aqua Blades. It's honestly just going to be random passive damage that happens. So it's not the end of the world if you like completely forgot to put on Aqua Blades. There's even actually a consideration to keep Aqua Blades or to keep Riptide on the build and subsume over Aqua Blades. It's just that Aqua Blades at least get some value. Riptide later on in Steel Path won't. It's going to be hard to get value out of it because like so many dudes are going to be overguarded. Riptide also kind of like rewards a slow play style where you stay in one place and kind of CC an area and pull everything in. I feel like Yareli's not about that life, you know? She wants to fly. Well, not really fly. She wants to hoverboard. Where the hell are these guys? I'm gonna randomly shoot these little explodey balls at them. Oh, actually, I need to cast my Roar anyway. There we go. You can get off of Yareli while you're in Operator, and you can actually go right back on into Yareli on the hoverboard, so you don't actually have to leave the hoverboard to go into Operator. Missed like half of my Raplex shots, as is tradition. But yeah, that's Yareli. Let me show something else off about her before we end it here. There's a big group of enemies here. Now they're fighting these guys. I'm going to kind of set myself right in the middle here. Try to let them beat me up here. All right, they're fighting the Sentinels. I wish these Sentinels would go away. So it's really hard for you to die as Yareli, just because you can get right back on her and you have that invuln. So it just becomes very, very hard to actually die. I don't think there's any Sentinels around here, so my Vulpaphyla is killing them all now, but that's okay. There we go. I try to get hit by that. What else? What else do I want to get hit by? Big group of enemies up here. Nope, the Vulpaphyla's killing them. There we go. You know, you could tell like when Marlene getting low. You got the bottom right there has her little health bar, and it'll tick down. I'll get kicked off of it eventually, but again, it's just very hard to die on her. These are 188s, so they're not like super high up in Steel Path. But I mean, I'm trying to get hit by like everyone that spawned, and I think I'm doing an okay job of it. Oh, she's getting low. Marlena's getting low. Oh my goodness, she's dead. I go right back on her, shaboop, and we restart the whole process. So very, very hard to die on Yareli. Just wanted to showcase that before I ended it there. So yeah, that's it, guys. Hope you liked it. All right, bye.